Welcome to the Riff. Today, Jeremy and Justin riff on spiritual trauma. Everyone has a story, and today we get to explore how your story shapes how you see God. We hope today is helpful. Thanks for listening.
Hello, Riff listeners. Thanks for listening. It is not lost on me the time and the investment that you are taking by listening to the Riff episode, even if it's an accident. I appreciate that too.
How would it be an accident?
Like if you
accidentally listened to a podcast?
Yeah, like yeah,
Name
100%.
One. Tell me one.
I would say the Zags one. Do you listen to any Zags podcasts?
Shockingly, no.
Okay, I've got it right here. If I'm going to say it, I want to get the right name of it. So this would be Free Ira Brown. Ira Brown.
Okay.
Is a Zags podcast. And I've gone to listen to that before, and next thing I know, I've got Craig Rochelle talking to me. And I'm like, no. Now, I love Craig Rochelle. I love his podcast as well. But when I'm trying to get psyched up for a Zags game, I'm not looking for like 5 ways to have a better meeting, okay?
So, you get psyched up for a Zags game by listening to a podcast?
Yes.
Really?
Of course I do. How else am I going to get psyched up for a Zags game?
I don't know. Paint your chest?
Yeah, I've already done that.
Oh, sorry.
I paint my chest. I listen to Free Ira Brown, and it's 4 people who are going to talk about the Zags, and it's only an hour.
Oh man,
and
that sounds riveting.
I do that while I work out. Oh man, did I just flex there? Oh yeah, I flexed. I'm just kidding. Well, I try and I don't know. I try and jog. Do you work out?
You got
arms. You work out.
I do have arms.
Yeah,
2 of them. And I don't run though. I don't jog.
But you lift heavy things.
I do.
Yeah. So I don't do that.
No. But do you jog?
Yeah, I would say run.
Okay.
Not a jogger. I'm a runner.
Really?
Yeah. I run. I try and run 2.5 to 3 miles.
How often?
Once a month.
Wow.
Well, cumulatively.
Okay.
4 times a week.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. And then pickleball. Pickleball's where it's at.
Yeah.
Oh man, my cardio.
Yeah.
Anyway, I don't know. Is that what we're talking about today on the Riff?
I think so.
Okay. So may our lives be an inspiration to all those who are listening. Some of you are like, how do I go from couch to marathon? Well, I don't know how to get to the marathon, but I know how to get off the couch. So we'll get you a part of the way and you can go from
That's
there.
not what we're talking about.
Okay, what are we talking about today on the Riff?
We're talking about theological trauma.
Now, I want to talk about theological trauma.
Okay.
Now you got me totally intrigued.
Okay.
So I'm getting there.
Yeah.
Keep going.
Oh, that's it?
I'm just telling you.
You just wanting to do it?
Wow, we went from Free Ira Brown to theological trauma. So I just had to shift my gear.
All right. Well, is it shifted?
It's there.
Great. I think it's an interesting topic as we kind of go through JXP and small groups and listen to people's stories. And it's just interesting. Everybody's got a story, right? Everybody's got a story. So a lot of things that have come up just in the past couple of months, at least for me, with family, friends, talking about stuff is where their beliefs have come from, where they are now, and maybe where they're heading, right? And there's a lot of conversations, one in particular that I had about someone not even wanting to read the Bible because it had been weaponized. I'm like, what? Like there's so many things out there that are heavy that people are going through that when they enter a space like North Point, when we say we want to be a safe place for people to find and follow Jesus, we really do want to be a safe place. And the question that I would ask is, why do we need to be a safe place? Why does there need to be a safe place? Well, probably because there's other places that are not safe.
Right.
So I think just understanding where people are coming from, that they might have come from a dangerous place or a closed space or a space that wasn't helpful for their family or a space that didn't really give them a good representation of who Jesus is. It's just an important conversation, and I want to get your take on it. I want to get your take on if you're coming from something like that, or if you're in something like that, or have been in something like that. What are some of those steps? What are some of those things that you're looking for to bring life back into a scripture that you're reading? Bring life back into a relationship with Jesus that you maybe once had and kind of long for. So that's what we're talking about today. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Did you shift that gear?
Yeah, man. Let's shift. Let's go.
Great.
Yeah, I do think that people's theology is incredibly impacted by their biography. So meaning my view of God, my view of Scripture is often impacted by my journey. We cannot separate those two things. And so, my perspective is the only perspective I have. And so here's the deal, I don't think bad theology creates a bad experience alone. Meaning, if I go downtown, I go to St. Michael's for banana cake. Have you ever had the banana cake at St. Michael's?
My word.
Yes.
If we had a sponsor,
yes,
it would be St. Michael's, and they would give us free banana cake.
That would be awesome. So if you haven't tried that, go downtown Springfield. I wouldn't park in the downtown garage. If you read the news recently, but take your chances on the street. But have St. Michael's cake. If you have someone who's preaching in a megaphone downtown and they're preaching this judgmental message, it doesn't bother me. I don't lose sleep at night because I don't trust the messenger. I don't trust the message. I can listen to bad theology and be like, that's stupid, and it doesn't impact me. Where bad theology is toxic is when it was used from someone you were supposed to trust and or worse, that you did trust. And it was presented in a way where you believed it. And then when you believe it or you trust the person and then they become untrustworthy, or then that theology begins to not be a pure theology and you've already opened your heart to it, that's what makes it toxic, is because now someone I trusted or something I trust and opened my heart to all of a sudden now hurt me. And so now what do I do? So I can't be hurt by someone who I don't let in, rarely, when it comes to that theological deal. But I'm hurt when I've let someone in, and now all of a sudden, you can see the challenge. Someone shows up at North Point, or someone shows up in your world, or maybe that's you, and it looks trustworthy, it looks appealing, but what makes you even more guarded is the bad theology that you experienced in your past was trustworthy and looked trustworthy, and the people did. And so now the fact that it looks like a safe place makes you almost even more on guard because you don't want to be burned twice. And so another example of this is we are, as a church, we are spiritual ER. And it's a busy ER. On any given weekend, people show up and we have no idea what brought them to the ER today. We have no idea. And what happens is we can go through the motion like, this is church, this is just what we do, and you all know what's going on and we know what you need. We don't know what you need. And so you might show up and you might have had a bad chainsaw accident at the ER, and you show up and your fingers are falling off, and you show up and we're like, hey, here's a form, here's a card, fill out this card. And you're like, I need something right now. And we can be so focused on our systems, our process, our procedures, our dance, our day, and forget that you're bleeding to death. And there are people who show up who are, they're having spiritual trauma, spiritual triage, and they're showing up, and some of the things that we're saying are triggers. And it's not because we're bad, and it's not because it's even dangerous. It's because it's been used. So what you're saying, I think, is probably many people's experience who are even listening today. And it's for sure a common experience every weekend we're open.
So what are some of those steps maybe that you think of? And I know everybody's going to be different, right? Everybody's going to process those pieces differently, which is why counseling is very important. Yeah. To understand how you work and how you process through elements like that, right? But what are some things, what are some handles that people can look at? Number one, in order not to just, I'm an avoider, okay? So that like my natural tendency is when I get into a space, I feel like I'm trapped into a corner, I'll either quit or walk away. Which is just makes me sound like a great leader and dad and all of that. I'm not, but that's my natural tendency, right, is to just be like, I'm not winning at it. I don't want to, it's fine if, and you can do that with theology too, right? Like you could do that with a bad experience even if the theology might have been great and there was a bad experience associated with it. I might take all of that and kind of bundle it together and say, that's religion. And No. So that's kind of how I've walked into those spaces. So what are some helpful maybe processes that you've seen people walk through in the past to maybe not package that whole thing together and really keep open hands to it?
Okay, so one is, I think, is to understand that spiritual trauma is a thing. And it's happened throughout history. We call it the Crusades, right? Where I know what we'll do is we're going to paint a cross on our weapons and we'll say convert or die, right? The spiritual symbols, spiritual words have been weaponized since the beginning of Christianity. So we just need to understand it's not a 21st century problem, it's a human problem.
Yeah.
I think there's two things that cause spiritual trauma. You got good people with bad theology. And you like the people, they're good people. And it's just the theology is bad, and you don't notice it until later on, that theology, that view of God, or that sense of shame or guilt that comes from maybe it's a grandma, maybe it's a parent. They're good people. You love them. They love you. But somehow their angle, their perspective of scripture isn't helpful for you. So good people with bad theology can create trauma. All of a sudden you're like, man, I'm not good enough. God must not love me. He just puts up with me. And it would make you neurotic. The second thing that causes trauma is bad people with good theology. And so you can have really good theology, and then the person who is in charge of communicating this theology to you, whether it's a caretaker or whether it's a pastor, all of a sudden they do things that are not good. Mm-hmm. And sometimes they do things harmful. Sometimes they do things just very sloppy. And now that hurts because this was meaningful to me. This message was meaningful. This relationship was meaningful. And whether you were a good person with bad theology, now it's hurt because I really like this relationship, or you had a good theology, but you ended up being a harmful, unsafe person because of a mistake or because of a motive. Either way, that becomes toxic. And now my tendency is to not open up. And here's the truth. All of us have been hurt by good people, and all of us have been hurt by bad people. All of us have been hurt because we're humans and we interact with people. And so it is not, there is nobody who goes to North Point who hasn't had spiritual hurt in their life, right? Disappointment with God that is fueled by disappointment with people who represented God, or disappointment with God because of their own biography doesn't match up. And so now they have a hurt theology because of their painful biography. So trauma's there. So what do we do with it? One, we know it's out there. So you're not wrong for experiencing it. You're human for experiencing it. Mm-hmm. We all experience it. Second thing is to just recognize, okay, I'm hurt because it meant something to me. If it didn't mean something to you, it didn't hurt. But because it hurts, it's because you cared. So I would just become very curious about that. Why did that experience when I was in college? Why did that experience at my job? Why did that experience at that church? Why did my experience growing up? Why does that hurt right now? Is it because I really wanted this to be true and now I'm disappointed with the person who shared it with me? Is it because I really want God to love me and I feel like he doesn't? And that would cause trauma. And so my thought is just to be curious about that. And then and it's not as simple as this. It's not as easy as this, but I think here's a simple one. Separate bad behaviors from good theology and separate bad theology from good people. And so bottom line is what I want to be able to do is shift and say, hey, listen, I've had bad experiences with Christians before. I've had the kind of experience that I was like, man, I don't know if I can trust that person anymore. And the temptation is, I don't know if I can trust Christianity anymore because Christians let me down. And quickly I have to recognize that and shift and be like, I can trust Jesus was burned by his closest followers. Humans are always going to disappoint us. So just because I'm hurt by a person doesn't mean the message isn't something I need to grasp. As a matter of fact, I probably need it more than ever. So anyway, those are a few things. Recognize that it's there. Recognize it's going to be part of our life. Second thing, be curious about why it hurts because you care. And third, try and separate. Like, yeah, that was a bad experience, but that doesn't mean it was a bad message.
How do you separate those pieces? Like for you, how do you separate that bad theology, good theology? There's a show out, The Last of Us, right now.
Yeah, I've heard of it.
I'm not going to say watch it, okay? Because there's a lot of things in it that I'm like, I don't know if I should watch that. But there's a moment in that. There's a character at the end of the season. This isn't giving anything away, so don't worry. Kind of is. Sorry.
You already told me not to watch it.
That's true. You know that he's a bad guy because he's reading the Bible. And Rainn Wilson was on The Office, has a write-up on this. And he's like, as soon as I saw that character, the first scene, you think that he's good, but I know he's bad because he's reading the Bible. Right? So there's this already like sense of like how do you separate that?
Yeah.
Like as soon as I saw that scene, I'm like, oh, this guy's super evil, like really bad.
Right.
So how do you separate those pieces? Because you're right. Like those things have been weaponized. So you look at that as the weapon, and now wait, is that a weapon or no? That's not a weapon. Is it just the bad? So how do you do that? How do you separate those pieces? What's maybe a step?
Yeah. Oh, one fascinating on that idea is. I would say even more than an evil person is a dangerous person, because what's more dangerous than someone who's, threatening harm is someone who's threatening good and desiring harm.
Yeah.
And so that's the thing about Scripture is when you do something that's supposed to be so loving and you use it in a negative way, it's a perversion of the purpose. How do I separate this? Is one. I just emotionally, and I know sometimes this isn't helpful, and maybe there's a helpful tool to a dysfunctional ability of just not attaching my emotion to it and saying when something hurts, okay, to be able to then analyze it quickly and say, okay, this hurts. So I've been in a situation where I've been hurt by someone who was a mentor in my life. And this is someone who at one point had a lot of voice in my own career. And there came a point where all of a sudden this voice became damaging and controlling. And I don't even know. I was going to say, I don't believe that was the intent. Ultimately, I don't even care if that was intent. That's not even the point.
Yeah.
Bottom line is that his voice was now in that season hurtful for my purpose. A voice that was used to shape my purpose all of a sudden now was hurtful in my purpose. And so the temptation is ignore that purpose because that guy is not helpful to me right now. He's hurting me right now. So I'm going to dismiss everything. And so what I've done in that moment is say, listen, for however he had the role in my life, he had a voice in my life and he helped shape and help me discover my purpose. But now my purpose trumps this and I can't ignore my purpose now because I have disappointment with this person. So just because you have a voice doesn't mean you have a vote, okay? So you have a voice, but at this point I don't feel this voice affirms my purpose, even if it was one that helped me find purpose. And I think that's the problem is when we let people who help shape us and meant a lot to us all of a sudden now do harm to us, that's abuse, right? And so I've got to be careful even with people who at one point were helpful for me. I got to still guard my purpose over your opinion. And what happens then is then when I'm hurt by that person, I've still got, the last thing I'm going to do is let you not only now rob me of a mentor, but now you're going to rob me of my purpose. And so that's why I would say to someone in a church setting, a lot of people, I mean, we live in the Bible Belt, a lot of people here who are unchurched, they're unchurched because they were churched. The number one reason why they don't go to church is because they've been to one and it was hurtful for them. And it's not because it started out hurtful. It's because it started out meaningful. And so they allowed it close. And then when it ended up hurtful, they became jaded. And you don't become jaded when you don't care. You only become jaded because you care deeply and now you don't want it to hurt again. So what I would say is this, don't ever let arrogance, ego, poor character from a human rob you of the very scripture and life and purpose of God. Is God's often drawn straight lines through crooked sticks, right? Is an old saying. And I would just encourage you, if you've had a bad experience with church or with Christianity, it's probably because you had a bad experience with a human. And that's fair. You got to be safe. You got to guard yourself, but don't deny yourself of the very thing that brought you life, and that's Jesus. So I don't know. How do you do that? That's a journey. You mentioned counseling.
Yeah.
But I do feel like just to evaluate and say, hey, listen, this is just humanity. And now it motivates me. Instead of saying, hey, I hate the church because I had a bad experience working at one before, it makes me more motivated to say, well, I want to represent something different. All the more. Now I'm passionate to represent who Jesus is because I've seen it done wrong, right? Not in a competition way, but in a passion and a mission way is people need to see Jesus, and I will not now sit on the sidelines the rest of my life because I've had a bad experience. Put me in the game, man. Is you can't take Jesus from me. You can't take the scripture from me, especially because it was passionate. It was a big part of my life for a season, and just because someone I trust and respected hurt me doesn't give that person the power to rob the foundation that they helped me build.
It's good.
And so if you're listening, and here's the challenge. A lot of us, we have one shot to get passionate about Jesus. Because it's weird to get passionate about Jesus. It's weird to get passionate about scripture. It is. It's not normal. It's what we were born to do. And we have one shot typically. And when we discover it, man, it's exciting. And you see people discover it, like this sense of purpose. And everything it's just so exciting and vibrant in people's faith. And they realize this is what I was made to do. And the moment they get hurt, that's why hurt is big time. Because all of a sudden you're like, it's not about someone let me down. It's about someone who meant so much to my being and purpose let me down. And now it's really tough to get excited about my purpose again. Because the last time I got excited about my purpose, I got really hurt. And what I would say to anybody listening, a lot of you who are listening, you could remember a time when you had to dial back your passion and purpose because you got really hurt by somebody or really pissed off at somebody. And I would just say, dial it up. Separate that person, separate that biography, that disappointment with God because of that sickness, because of that incident. And I'm not saying it didn't hurt, but I would say that passion's still there. What would it look like if all of a sudden you leaned back into that purpose, back into that passion and said, God, I'm hurt, I'm disappointed, I'm confused, I feel betrayed. But one thing I can't deny is I feel like I was born to have a relationship with you and born to reflect you and born to be a light in dark places. God, can you utilize me and help me to have the courage to keep taking steps towards this, even though I know I've been hurt before? That's a big deal. It's a big deal. But we need you to. And when you do that, you are actually more prepared than anybody else because now it's not a Pollyanna faith. You know, man, like for me, I am very aware that listen, as a pastor at North Point, I have an agenda. I have an agenda for my staff, right? I shouldn't even say it that way. That's a stupid way to say it. It's not my staff. I have an agenda for the team. Yeah. Every day I have to remember the pain that it was on the other side of a staff when someone's agenda, and they meant well for their own agenda, snuffed out what my purpose was. So every day I have to sit there and say, okay, because of my hurt, I refuse to be that person to my team. I've got to now, when someone has something, does something, feels something that goes against my agenda, my purpose, my 5-year dream, I have to stop and say, man, I got a choice here. Do I help fuel their purpose, or do I, lock down with some pressure? And there's been times, and I'm sure we can find a very interesting podcast to interview a bunch of people who felt like I didn't fuel their purpose in those moments because I didn't handle that well. But what I'm trying to do and trying to be is a person who says, man, you got purpose. God's speaking to you. Chase that. Do that. You are that. And separate purpose from my own pressure, purpose from my own job, purpose from my own agenda. Because that was my pain. I feel like I'm going to be, and I am, a better leader because I've been hurt before from someone who is leading me. I think I'm a better pastor because I've seen pastors use their pulpit to manipulate people. And I have to ask myself all the time, am I going there with a pure heart, or am I going there trying to manipulate? And it makes me a better pastor because I've seen it. And why I say that is you might be there, you might be a better representation of Jesus because you've experienced a poor one. And in this world, you were not born on accident, you were born with purpose. And I'm praying that all of heaven would light you up today and remind you that there's no pain from a person that should be able to suffocate the purpose within you. And so fight for it, care about it, cry about it, write about it, cuss about it, whatever you got to do to land at the end of the day saying, God, your purpose is too important for me to be buried and walk around like a zombie spiritually. Mm-hmm. You were made for more. You were made for more.
That's super helpful, man. That's good.
I hope it is. I know that all of us have to walk through that. Mm-hmm. But we're not human beings or spiritual beings. We were created by purpose, with purpose, for purpose. And it's so discouraging and defeating when you've walked through that purpose and felt that that purpose was ripped. Here's the deal, though. There is not one person, there's not one boss, there's not one mentor who can rip the purpose from you because they're not the one that gave it to you. They might have been helpful in your discovery of your purpose, but if they didn't give it to you, they can't take it from you. And so have a funeral of the relationship, have a funeral of the season. I think that's purpose. There's purpose there, but give your funeral an end date and say, okay, I'm not having a funeral of my faith because my faith wasn't in that person. My faith wasn't in that church. My faith wasn't in that organization. And the moment that person, that organization, that church does not fill my faith, then have a funeral and move on because your faith's too important.
It's good. I think that's extremely helpful pieces to walk through. I'm really sorry I ruined The Last of Us for you. I don't
know if you ruined it.
I don't know.
You might have intrigued it because you didn't tell me if the person was a bad guy, because that might be that twist at the end.
I'm just saying you shouldn't even watch it. Okay, I'm not going to be the guy that
Have you seen The Office?
Yeah.
So Rainn Wilson.
Yeah.
He's the bad guy.
No.
I've said too much. Yeah, I'm not recommending you to watch it, but I'm just saying. I read the book, and I don't know if the shows are similar. But.
Well, man, this topic I know is a topic that comes up a lot for everybody listening. Yeah. I have so many, like I said, I have so many conversations with friends and family, and everybody's got a story, man. Everybody's got a story, and I think it's helpful to understand the story and to understand where the story is taking you. And I think this conversation is super helpful. I think your words on it are helpful. I think your wisdom on it is very helpful. And I'm praying that people take it seriously and they don't shut down. Yeah. And they take those words that you just said seriously and then take a step. Just take a next step.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jesus is good. People are unpredictable.
You've always said that. You've always, is that it?
Yeah, always.
There's a tattoo that keeps showing, like on your left.
It's henna.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I thought it was going to be that saying.
No. Every time I go to Branson, I always stop by the henna booth. So it's all
right by the dulcimer shop.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a great place, man.
It's good. It's good. Hey, we're still open for sponsors, Branson. So
I don't know.
Get in line.
I don't know. St. Michael's comes through.
Oh, yeah. Banana cake.
Yeah.
Let's go there now.
All right.
All right. Thanks, Riff listeners. Hope you have a great week. Bye.
Thanks for listening to this episode of The Riff. We'll have a brand new episode every week, wherever you find podcasts.